Muted.
PNG that are currently on Nightingale and have migrated from PNG. For the other sites, like the AX that are going to move from Healthscreen to this system, or the Francophone sites that are planned to migrate in Nightingale at a later time, this presentation and webinar will be represented at that time, as some changes may occur during then. So, let's start the discussion on the legacy client chart system. Today we are presenting you the guide that will allow you to download the tools, install the tools, and run the tools that will allow the migration from PNG to the legacy client chart system. This guide is quite technical, so I'm going to go through it, and at the same time I will perform the operation into a test environment as well, so that you can see live how that works. At the end of this presentation, later today, you will receive an email with the link to the presentation and the material. We are also going to upload a recorded version of this webinar, and all of that will be indicated in the email that will be sent later today for you to have access to all the information that you need to perform the migration that we are asking your center to perform. So let's go through the guide, and as I go through the guide, I will pause to run the application as well to show you how it works. So first, on the first page of the guide, after the table of content, you will have a general information notes about the different icons and information that are displayed in the guide for reference. And then we go to the implementation schedule and plan. So if we look at the timeline for the data migration process, we expect all centers to start the process on October 1st. You will have, at the end of this webinar, all the information to start as soon as you want to. You will have access to the tool at the end during this presentation. And but we expect at least all centers to start the deployment on October 1st to make sure that we can meet the December deadline. So the first part now, today, and up to October 1st is the deployment of a migration tool to the sector, so that you can start the data migration process. By October 16, you will get access to the viewer tool that will allow you to perform validation on your data. Because from October 1st to October 16, you are going to start the data migration. The data migration will be, most of the data will be migrated by October 16, but not all of it. And by October 16, we give you the tool that allows you to actually look at the data, because before that, you don't have any visibility of that. We expect all centers to be able to perform the validation between October 16 to December 14th, which include validation of a discrete data element, and at a later time around November to look at the document content itself. And as you can see, plan for the next year is where we have the Healthscreen deployment starting, as it's not included at this time in the current timeline for December. So now I'm going to start the data migration process so that you can see what is involved in it and what we are asking centers to go through, knowing that we are always available. Would you have any questions, problems, or issues performing any of these tasks? Also, if during the presentation you do have questions, don't hesitate to use the chat window that is available in GoToTraining. We will pause at time and go through the questions and provide answers to them. We can also unmute the phone, some individual on the call if somebody wants to have a question, if they want to raise the question themselves instead of typing it. So the data migration process is composed of two items. That is the main data migration process as well as the external document process. If you have read the IT requirement document, in it, it's mentioned that we're going to need two computers to run the process. One having PuckNG, which means that it's most likely going to be the PuckNG server. That's the one I use for all beta testing. And the second computer being either the new server with a new database or any Windows 7 computer or Windows 7 or any desktop computer, I would say, that have all the tools to read and print all the documents that PuckNG may have. So on this part that I'm going to start, it's the first process, that is to install and run the main data migration process on the first machine that has PuckNG, that is most likely the PuckNG server. So the first part in processing, in doing this step, is to download the file, which, as you can see on the link, they are all available at that link, so you can download the tools when you desire. In the file that you're going to receive, which is a zip file, you're going to have only two software in it, a setup and a legacy client chart import.msi file. And to install the tool, you just run the setup.exe that will perform the full installation. So in essence, the setup.exe will first make sure that you have Windows Installer 4.5, and if not, ask you to install it. Then check the .NET framework and the same. Either skip it if you already have it. We'll prompt you to install it if you don't have it yet. And if you need to install any of the Windows installer or .NET framework, you may be requested to restart the computer. And we initiate the setup by clicking the setup.exe again. And you will arrive to the legacy client chart importer setup wizard. As any of the Microsoft installer, this one is standard. You start with clicking next. At one point, you have a choice to select the location of installation, which you can keep and you should keep standard. The everyone and just me options are just to know if a shortcut to the application are put in the all user profile or the specific user profile. By default, the legacy client chart, the data migration tools are set to install just me, because usually they are run under the same profile. The viewer are set up to be at everyone by default, because usually when they are installed on computer, anybody who log in should have access to it. So after that, you just have to confirm the installation, go next, and the tool will be installed. So now, when the tool is installed, the first part that you're going to have to do is the configuration of the tool, that is to indicate where the database are and how to access them. So you have after installation, the tool that will be installed in the legacy client chart subfolder, and the first tool will be called importer. That is the one that migrates the data. For people who ask on the chat, the guide is actually available as a link on the material for this training. So if you look on your right of the screen on the toolbar, you should have access to the material. You should have a link to this guide there. And if not, the guide, a link to the guide will also be sent by email. So with the importer shortcut being available in the legacy client chart menu, you just click on it to start it, which I'm going to do right now. So on my screen, I did put the shortcut on the desktop, but when I double click on it, it will open the client chart importer tool. So the first item, as indicated in the guide, by default is going to be on new project, is to select a description for your project as well as the PuckNG system. When you select the description from the project, select a familiar name for your user. If you're a single site CHE, for example, if I take North Lanark as an example, and if it was a single site, you would put as a name North Lanark or East End or Parkdale. That is the user-friendly name that we want there, because this name will be available to the end user. When you're single site, it doesn't matter as much, but when you're multi-site, that's the name that the provider are going to see in the tool to select site they want to access. So you want friendly name, but user understand what when they select one of the two sites, which site they are connecting to. So when you have selected the name, a description, and indicated the type, that is PuckNG for this training, you click Next. When you click Next, you are going to arrive to the selection of a source database. By default, the tool will automatically go look in the registry because this tool has to be installed when PuckNG is installed. This tool will go get the information about the PuckNG installation directly from the registry as indicated at the top here. So here I have found that there is PuckNG installed with a configuration called DCI Clinic, a version 430.1.0.161, and here is the database server and the name of the database. By clicking on that item, automatically the path to the PuckNG bin folder will be indicated, the server will be indicated as well, and the database will be indicated as well. The only item that you have to add to that is the login password for the SQL server. Now I know that some CHE may have issues finding this login password, and if you look at the appendix, at the guide at the end in the appendix, I did add some ways to find this information. These two logins that have been used in PuckNG by PuckNG across the sector that you can try first. If that doesn't work, there is always a way to create a new user in SQL Server to allow to perform the process. If you so desire, the user can be thereafter removed from the PuckNG database server after that. If you have any issue finding this login password and the appendix doesn't help, again, please don't hesitate to contact us at ims@aohe.org so that we can help you move forward. So as soon as you have selected the configuration and put the login password and all the icon on the side says that is indicating that is waiting to validate, then you click Next. When you click Next, that's where the validation and the connection to the database is going to be tested. If it goes to the next step and you have a grid check mark on top where it says Select Source Database, that is the configuration is correct, and you can move next. If not, you can always click on Select Source Database to make any correction that you need to do. On the Select Destination Database, that's where you're going to have to enter this time There's no shortcut to it. You have to enter the server where you want to put the new database, login password, as well as the name of the database. At the top, you will notice that you have a choice between selecting MySQL or MS SQL Server. If you want to use MySQL as the new database, that's the only difference that there is in the whole process, is to select at this stage MySQL and put the name of the server, database, login password for MySQL. That's the only difference that there would be as compared to using SQL Server. So now, if I select SQL Server, and here I'm going to select the database where I want to create the server where I want to create the new database. Now, for the name of the database, this name will be is a system name in the sense that the user will not see that name. It's more of a technical name, a little bit like PuckNG call his database TCI-DB. You can use a similar notation across the sector, and right now I have used for all the beta testing AOHC LCC. If you plan on hosting more than one database on the same server, then you will have to select different names. So for example, you could have AOHC LCC North Lanark, and you can have AOHC LCC South Lanark as the two databases, for example, that you may want to create on your server, so that both sites are different. But again, the name there, it's a SQL Server database name, not seen by the user. So you have some freedom in the name that you choose, as long as you remember moving forward what this database is for when you look at the server. And that's why, however, I choose the name AOHC LCC so that it's clear that the database is the AOHC project, LCC being the legacy client chart. When this information is put, you can click Next. When both configurations have been entered and are correct, you're going to have two green check marks there at the top. And at this stage, that's where you start to create and start the data migration process. So now I'm going to go back in the guide, and I'm going to skip the page that goes through the configuration, as I just did it on the screen right now. And I'm going to go to the step where it says to execute. So for the migration of the discrete data element, that process will take more or less depending on the size of your database. It is a process that will run automatically and will complete in the time that it needs to complete. During this time, the server will not be used. At this time, the server could still be used for administrative purposes, but the transfer of this data will take some time depending on the size of your database. You have to wait for these two steps, that is, prepare the database and copy the database, before validation can be started, or before the migration of external document can be started as well. Now, if you look at this page, it's indicated at the bottom here in red that before to start this process, you better check the configuration of the SQL Server where the destination database is going to be created. Just because SQL Server by default and MySQL as well have a default location where new databases are created. If you install SQL Server on a server that has a system drive and a data drive, make sure that the default location for SQL Server where new databases are created goes on your data drive, to avoid filling up your system drive if your system drive doesn't have enough space for the database. So that is just a configuration of SQL Server, but it's just to make sure that before you run the process, that the SQL Server database that will be created on the right drive if you have two drives on your server and one is bigger than the others. So when you're sure that the configuration is correct, then the only step that you have to perform on this screen is to click the execute button. So I'm going to do it now. So when you click the execute button, you're going to see it's going to perform the process. As you can see on my screen, sometimes it does seem that it gets stuck at one step, but it will continue to the end. You will notice that as soon as I clicked execute, the execute button will become unavailable. The next button will become unavailable as well. The cancel button will be, however, available. When the process completes, the execute and cancel become unavailable, and the next become available, assuming that the process completed correctly. If there is an error in the middle that occurs at any time, then you will be advised in the screen with a red X somewhere, and the next execute cancel will not be available anymore. You're going to see later in the guide these more information about the errors and what to do with it. As soon as this process is complete, you will also notice that the export configuration becomes available. This process, I will look into it after we have done the copy data, so that you can see how it works, as this button is available on all screens after the prepared database. So now if I go to the next step for copy data, you're going to see it's fairly easy as well. You just click next. You arrive to the copy data task. You just click execute, and it's going to start the process. Now the process is going to take a few minutes. My database is not that big, so it's not going to take too long. But be aware on some CHEs, this process can take a very long time to process. For each task, the system will tell you how many records are being processed and the estimated completion time. Be aware that the estimated completion time, like on any computer system, is an estimation that has a tendency to be very big, to start very big and go down quickly before to stabilize itself in the way that it's going to start to decrease. And that again, it's a standard computer process on which I don't have a lot of control, but the estimation, as you can see right now, has a tendency to start high and goes down very quickly and then stabilize itself a bit. So the time that the copy data is occurring, I'm going to continue on the guide and go to the steps and speak about some of the items to look for. So again, before to start the process, make sure that SQL Server is correctly configured. During the copy data, so again, it may seem that between tasks, sometimes when the task is going to be marked completed, the next one is not going to start right away because there's additional validations that are made just to make sure that all the data is processing correctly. The tool has a lot of validation in the process, which is the reason why when you move from one task to another, you may see this delay in going to the next step. Also, the tool is meant to capture any crash and to recover from any unexpected shutdown of the server, crash of any kind. The tool will automatically restart where the last process has occurred to the latest it can. Also, when you arrive in the copy data, and I can show you on my screen in the tool itself, in the bottom of the screen here, you're going to have 4 numbers that appear. These four numbers actually indicate the amount of data that has to be transferred. And as soon as you get this value, we will ask you if you can send us an email with this value. Just first, just to have a status update from your CHA and make sure that you are progressing. And also for us to be able to identify the CHEs that have the most volume and that will require priority handling and resolution, just to make sure that they make the deadline of December, because they are the one who have the most data to transfer. They are the one for which it will take the longest time to do. So it's the one that we want to make sure that the process is started and going the sooner than the later. So now if I continue in the guide, so we have seen when you're on the screen, you just click execute. The execution is going to occur. And so now there is the export configuration. So the export configuration that is available, like I indicated, from the prepared database to any step behind that. This export configuration is used to allow all the other tools to be configured without for you to have to re-enter all the information every time. So that's one step that you have to do. So it's easy. You click export configuration and you select where you want to put them. For me, I'm going to put it in the viewer shortcut that is on my desktop. You click OK. It's going to indicate the export has completed. Now, if I go in the folder itself, you're going to see that there's two files there. There is a DAT file and a LCC file. You will also notice that these files have the name of a project, so that if you're on multi-site, you can have multi-files and they all actually can go in the same folder without conflicting with each other. The DAT file is going to be used for the second migration tool. The LCC file is going to be used for configuring the end user tool so that you don't have to configure it for each user. These two files are going to be used in a later process, so I will go back to them, but how to create them is through the export configuration. The export configuration can be executed multiple times. If you misplace a file, you can always reproduce them at any time. Okay, so that's the configuration file. So again, for multi-center, again, because the names are going to be different, you're going to be able to place them all in the same folder. And for the LCC file, it's even more important because to allow configuring multi-site into one viewer, the easiest way to do it is to place all the LCC files for each of your sites, and the viewer will automatically get configured with all of them. And again, that is explained again at the end of the tool. So the next step is going to be executing the batch printing tool. Before to move to that step, so in my tool, I'm just going to go to the next step where it says execute the batch printing utility, but I'm going to keep it there for a few minutes. I just wanted to make sure that with everybody on the phone, if there is any question, concern to date. And if anybody has any questions, we just open all the lines. And if nobody has any questions, Okay, because there's no question, so I'm going to move to the next step. So the execution of a patch printing utility. So that process is where we start to convert all our InPKG into a format that can be used by the LCC viewer. To do that, the tool will use the patch printing utility. With that, there's two limitations that is going to occur at this stage. The first one is that to execute this stage, you have to execute the tool on the console of the server, especially if you're running on a server, you want to run it on the console of the server. If you log in to the server through remote desktop connection and execute the tool in your remote desktop connection, the tool will stop to respond when your connection disconnects. That is also true if you use tools like TeamViewer or LogMeIn. When the connection disconnects, automatically the tool may stop responding. For TeamViewer, it's a little bit different because, again, it depends if TeamViewer has been run in the remote desktop connection or on the console. Sometimes it will work, sometimes it will not. Tools like VNC don't have the issue because VNC automatically connects to the console. So the VNC tool, for example, will not cause the same issue. That is a standard issue with Windows servers, that for remote desktop connections, when they are disconnected or minimized, any executable running in this session will have limitation and will not be able to access the keyboard and mouse, which will cause the patch printing to stop responding. As I continue to speak, I'm going to start the execution so that you can see how that occurs on the screen. So when you start the execution of a patch printing tool, there is also another thing, is that the keyboard and mouse of the computer cannot be used. If you start to try to use the keyboard and mouse during this operation, you will interfere with the patch printing utility and the tool will stop working. Either at one point or another, the patch printing will not be able to continue. In this case, if that occurs, you can always keep the computer as is. After a certain amount and after a timeout, the patch printing, if still running, will be killed and restarted, and the process will be continued to where it was if at any time the process gets suspended. So as you can see, during the time that the tool executes, I cannot use the mouse and keyboard, so I cannot go back in the guide. However, at this stage, because on how my computer is configured, the patch printing can only be run once. I'm going to cancel the task so that you can see how, when you cancel a task, how that occurs. As soon as you click on the cancel button will become unavailable to indicate that the cancel operation has been received. Depending on the step you are in and depending on where in the step the tool is, it may take a few seconds to a couple of seconds for it to through the cancellation process, and the tool will indicate a cancellation with a red X, with a red icon, with a bar in front of it. So now I'm going to close the tool and I'm going to restart it after having done some manipulation on my side so that the patch printing is considered completed through the tool. So another item that I wanted to show you as well is that if a tool crashes, if a computer restarts, or if the power is lost and the computer shut down because of it, when you restart the computer, you can always restart the tool. As well, if you cancel the tool, if you cancel an operation, you cannot resume the tool. You will have to close it and reopen it for it to be able to resume. When you open the tool and the configuration has already been, and the tool has already been configured, the project will appear in the list and selected by default. You just click next. When you click next, you're going to have a window initializing the project that is going to appear. This window can stay there for a while. Depending on your database, depending on the site, it may actually stay there for for up to 1 or 2 minutes. The reason being is that when you resume the tool will validate that all the steps that have been marked as completed have actually been completed, that there is no discrepancy between the two databases, and that the tool can actually be resumed. If a discrepancy is found by the tool will not allow you to resume, will give you an error at one of the steps and to indicate that there is a discrepancy at that level, and you will have to contact us to resume the operation, as we need to make sure that the database is correct. So, as soon as the patch printing is completed, you're going to arrive to the screen that I am on right now. That is the screen called Resolve Corruption. What is this screen about is that through my years at P&G, I know that there is some CHEs that will have documents that are corrupted. In a sense, it's documents that P&G itself cannot open. If P&G cannot open the encounters or documents, the viewer will not be able to convert them, and they will be marked in error. There is also a situation that if the server crashes too often or too many times, there is some documents that could be marked in error because they tried to be printed, but they couldn't because the server crashed before. The tool will try each document multiple times to minimize that, but it can occur that when you arrive on this screen, you may have a large number of documents, and therefore the tool is equipped to handle that. So what do you do when you arrive to that screen? If there is only a couple of documents, then you can manually address each one of them. For each document, you will have a chart number as well as the date and all the information about the client. The information is going to be grouped by chart number by default, which you can change. You can remove a grouping. You can also change the sorting on any columns, or you can restore the grouping. For each document, you can mark the document corrupted, so that the tool knows that this document cannot be retrieved, and the viewer will indicate that. Or what you can do as well is you can upload an XPS file to replace, to add the document that should be there. That allows you that if you have a paper chart and these documents are available on paper form, you can always scan them. If your scanner only supports PDF, you can always scan to PDF and then take the PDF and print it to the XPS printer that we converted to an XPS file, and then you can import it there. When you mark a document as corrupted or when you upload a new file, automatically the option at the end will change, with always the option to revert what you just did. So for example, because I marked the document as corrupted, I cannot mark it as corrupted again. But what I can do is I can upload a file instead and say, no, actually the file is not corrupted. Here I have a new version of the document. And it's the same for the, if you upload a file, you can always re-upload a new file if it's needed, or you can always mark it corrupted, and in this case the file will be removed from the database. So unfortunately, there is no way for the tool or for me to detect which documents are corrupted. Usually the encounters are stored in encrypted and binary format, that when the document is corrupted, it's usually that the binary format is truncated. There is some element missing in it, but I cannot detect if it's the case before I actually print them. So there's no way of detecting how many documents are going to be corrupted in advance, but this tool will let you know when the patch printing has completed. So now, what happens if you have 500 of them? If you have 500 documents marked as corrupted, it's that most likely there was additional issue. There was a time at which the tool has tried to convert the document and was not able to, either because the database was not available or over any other issue of the type. In this case, what you can ask the tool is that you can ask the tool to reprocess all the documents that have not been marked fixed, so have not been marked corrupted or for which you didn't upload a new file. And automatically, you will go back to the patch printing tool, and the patch printing tool will be available to be re-executed on the documents that has not been converted yet. So in essence, this option allows you to reprocess, to ask the patch printing tool to try to reprocess the document that is found corrupted, to try to do them again, to try to see if it can process them and avoid having to treat them manually. And yes, the corrupted files, so the files that are indicated here are either the files that are corrupted in BuckNG or that the tool couldn't convert for technical error. The chance that the tool cannot do it on technical error is slim if the tool is working correctly. The only time that the tool will not be able to convert them for technical error is where one of the database goes down, the server is shut down, or where there is network issues or any nature that the tool cannot access the element that it needs to. In this case, some document may be marked in error, in a sense corrupted in error. They could be transferred, but the tool couldn't because of technical issue. In this case, asking the tool to reprocess them will allow you to fix this issue. But if you have only a few documents, like I do, most likely each document cannot be opened in BuckNG, and in this case, you will have to fix them manually. When you're done with a correction, with fixing the information, and when you're on the screen and you want to move forward, we ask you to first notify us, and we ask you to notify us with the key at the bottom here. And that is just for us to keep track of where each center is, but as well to make sure that there is no step that there is nothing that went wrong in the data migration based on what we see, to make sure that you can close BuckNG without any further issue. So to do that, we ask you to just send us the key, that is the 8 alphabetical key, and we will give you in exchange a 12 key that is also all letters, just to avoid any issue with numbers and letters and of this nature. And also you notice that as soon as I put the 12 letters and they are correct, the next button automatically becomes available, and I can click next. Now, when I am on that screen, that is the last step that you will perform on this tool, that is the main migration tool. When you execute that tool, that's where BuckNG will, in a sense, become deactivated. So what do we do in these steps? The first one is that we do refresh the list of users and the audit log, just to make sure that the viewer has the latest audit, but as well that if you deactivated any user in the process, if you had to deactivate a BuckNG user, for example, and you did, and even if a tool will allow you to deactivate user as well, we just want to make sure that any deactivation that you did on BuckNG is reflected on the viewer, so that you don't have to manage both tools at that stage. And then to deactivate BuckNG, the tool will change all the BuckNG user password to something that is random and therefore cannot be retrieved easily. to ensure that no user can connect to PuckNG after that, and create additional audit log in PuckNG for which the viewer is not aware of. Because after that part, all your audit log will be available in the viewer. That is, the PuckNG log as well as the viewer log will all be in one place in the viewer. So how do you validate data if PuckNG is deactivated? Is that you do validate the data before you deactivate PuckNG. So you will not perform this step. You will not perform the last step until you have validated the tools, until that you have validated the data, and until that the center says, yes, I will be moving today to the viewer. When your center is ready to get off PuckNG and move to the viewer, that's where you just execute that process here, and then after that, your user moves to the viewer and stop using PuckNG. So we want to make sure that before this step, you have done sufficient validation at your center to feel confident that you can move to the viewer and leave PuckNG behind. So right now, I'm just going to execute it, so to show you how fast and how quick it goes. On my tool, of course, it's going to be very fast because I don't have a lot of record. And that's it. When you have done that, PuckNG is deactivated, so all the passwords have been changed, and your user will not be able to go in PuckNG because the passwords are not valid anymore. The last item of this tool is the report. In this report, you will have general information about the data migration, so the source system and the destination system from which it was migrated from to. You will also have the new PuckNG password. That is the password that will be assigned to the PuckNG user account. That will provide you an emergency access to PuckNG would an issue occur. I did give a right to the PuckNG account because the PuckNG account is usually the one who has the most right on the database, on the system. The report will also have a list of data that was and the number of records that was imported and copied over, as well as the list of orphan clients created. So that is one step that I passed a little bit quickly at the beginning of the process. That is the fixing of a missing client. And that is a process that I have to do for CHs that have been on the system for a while, so at least 7 years, I believe. And that is that I noticed that when migrated from YorkMed at the time to PuckNG, there is a couple of clients at some CHs that was not migrated over. However, these clients do have documents in the database still. So to make sure that we can migrate all the database, all the documents, any client that don't have a registration in PuckNG but have documents in dossier will be added to the registration, will be indicated in the report here, but will be indicated as, so they will be very specific in the sense that the chart number will always start with LCC added with a number, so you will have chart number LCC added 1, LCC added 2. The first name, last name will compare to what I could find in the database, but in the note field of the client, in the memo field on the bottom right of the registration screen in PuckNG, I put a message there that says that this client was created through data migration through the legacy client chart process. So yes, the question is, are these clients available in dossier but not in PM? Yes, that is actually the case. They are Actually, to be fair, no, they are not available in dossier. They were available in dossier before the migration, but they will not be available in dossier right now after the migration because the data is not in the right table. Right now, for a site like Eastern, for example, that has been the longest running, one of the longest running, we found a total of 7 clients in this situation. Just to give you an order of magnitude.
There were some questions before.
Yeah.
To read them out?
Sure. So there was other questions, but we are going to go back now to.
One question was, can we uninstall Purkinje once it has been deactivated?
Yes. Yes, you can uninstall Purkinje. The only things that you are going to have to keep from Purkinje after the deactivation is the database itself for Hummingbird reporting. The scan document, as soon as they are migrated, and you can attest that they are visible in the viewer, but there is no issue. As long as the data is migrated and you can access it, and there is no issue, the scan document and the Purkinje system itself can be uninstalled. Only the database needs to be kept for Hummingbird reporting.
The next question actually ties into that. While the tool is copying and batch printing from the database, can we still access Purkinje and also use Hummingbird?
Yes, you can access both without any limitation. Also, you're going to see through the validation process is that during your validation, the tool will continue to migrate the encounter and the scan document in the same time. Both can be done. So you can access Purkinje, the tool can migrate the data, and you still can access Purkinje and the viewer at the same time.
Next question, can we have LCC running in October and not retire Purkinje until December 31st?
Yes. Yes, you can have both system running for a very long time because both will keep the audit. So the LCC viewer will record what has happened inside itself. Purkinje will record what has happened in Purkinje since the data migration. When you retire, that's where the two are going to be merged into one. The only issue that you're going to have running the two for a long period of time is that if you do change in the user configuration, because of the process of synchronizing the user at Purkinje retirement time, you may have a couple of issues with the user settings at that time, but that will be the only issue that you can have.
The next question, I believe, has to do with those orphan clients.
Yeah.
So the question is, how can you see them in Purkinje?
Right now, you cannot see them in Purkinje because they are in the patient table instead of a PM party table. And if you look at both tables, you are going to see that all the patient table has been copied in the PM party table, except for this couple of clients that was not migrated. And all the clients that have not been migrated by YorkMed to Purkinje are not migrated. Only the ones that have documents are created by the tool.
Next question, would the Mandexin folder have to be kept as well?
No, except if you want to, the only item that you may want to keep from there is the local MIS for reporting as well and to work with Hummingbird. But the rest of the FTP1, FTP2 will be completely out by then. So the whole data extraction will not be needed anymore.
Next question. Can we view the list of corrupted documents without the administrator user being logged in?
Yes, yes. That was not planned, but yes. Yes, you can do it. First, let me go back to that. Yes, the only issue is that if you provide this tool, because actually, to be fair, this tool can be installed on any computer as well, and you can import the configuration and make it available. But the only problem is that your end user will have access to the report, which will have the source system, new database, data imported, and we'll have the orphan client. Yeah, so I mean, it could be made available. I didn't plan for it, but it could be made available to the end user if they would need to have access and to look at the corrupted document. There will be a little bit more technical process to install the tool on end user computer. It can be done.
Next question was regarding the question, can we have LCC running in October and not retire Purkinje until December 31st? I did not see a cancel or retire Purkinje later option in the tool.
No, so the only thing is that when you're done with the resolve corruption, when you're on the screen, to keep both systems running, you just keep it there. That's it. You can actually close the tool. You don't have to do the retire Purkinje at that time. At any time, so when, for example, I arrive to resolve corruption, I can look at sub-documents, I can fix some of them, I can close the tool, and then I can reopen the tool at a later time. So you can do all the process, fix the document, then you can close the tool, then a month later you can reopen the tool, go to the retire Purkinje, and to the retire Purkinje at that time. The tool will not go from step to step automatically. You have to make him go from one step to another. It's only when there is a set of tasks that is going to do all the tasks that is in the set of tasks. But going from one screen to another require for you to go to the next screen.
And also, I think before they can retire Purkinje, they have to get the key from us.
Yeah.
So we'll be in touch with them, and we'll ensure that they're okay to go ahead.
Yeah.
So, you can't just retire Purkinje unknowingly, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true.
The next question was, can we print the list of corrupted documents?
No, actually, that's a functionality that I see is missing currently on the tool. That could be added. That could be added for sure. In this case, I will have to create a new version of the tool, which is not problematic, again, because the tool can be stopped and restarted at any time. If I have to send a new version of the tool, the only things that you would have to do is close the tool, install the new version, but you don't have to uninstall, you just run the install again, and it will refresh and install the new version, and then you would have to restart the tool again. So I'm going to look into that to be able to print the list of corrupted documents, because it is a fair request to have, and may remove a name, client name, and identifiable information from the printout, so that you just have a chart number, provider, and this kind of information. But I will look into it for sure.
The next question is: we're a multi-database site. Do we have to have one LCC viewer with both databases on it, or can we have two installs of the LCC with one database on it?
So you can do both, and that is up to you. So when you're going to install the viewer, you're going to have to place the LCC file with the installation file for the configuration to occur. So if you install the viewer and you have both your LCC file for both sites inside, then both sites are configured. If you only put one LCC file when you perform the install, then only the site for which you provided the LCC file will be configured in the viewer.
The next question, can we see how to add or remove authorized users from LCC?
Not yet. Not yet. This functionality has not been implemented in the viewer yet. The management of user has not been implemented in the viewer yet. But it will be straightforward, as it has to be straightforward.
Actually, I think it would also be a good time to just let people know. So this install is for the migration tool, and this webinar is geared towards the migration tool. Around October 15th, when we will be releasing the viewer tool, we'll do the same webinar like this one, except in that case we'll go over the viewer, and at that time we'll go over how to add and remove users. Because that option will be available in the viewer and not the migration tool.
Yes. And also on this topic, we will recommend that CHE send some of the end user as well to the webinar, a representation of it like super users, so that you can disseminate the information about the viewer training, knowing that the viewer is very straightforward and as straightforward as we could to make sure that a user familiar with Purkinje will be able to find themselves on the viewer directly.
And we'll be sending out the invites to these training webinars for the viewer in next week, most likely.
This week or next week?
This week or next week, yeah.
Okay, so that was the first part of, that was the presentation of the first tool. That is the main data migration tool. Now for the second tool is the scan importer, the external document processing. So the reason why, so to be honest, the two, both process were done in the same tool at the beginning, but had to be separated going later, to make sure that we can meet the December deadline. So now both process, the conversion of our counter and the conversion of external documents, can be run in parallel on two separate computers as to speed up the process. Now there is a question on the advantage and disadvantage of going through Microsoft SQL Server or MySQL. The difference is license and tools. Microsoft SQL Server, you cannot use the free edition of Microsoft SQL Server because of the limitation of the database to 10 GB. Therefore, you need to at least purchase SQL Server Standard Edition. That if you have charity pricing through TechSoup is not that bad, but if you don't, it can be quite pricey. Using MySQL, the community edition of MySQL is free and doesn't have any database limit, therefore you can use it. However, MySQL is a little bit more complex on the administrative side. There is no automatic backup available directly out of MySQL. You can schedule a dump. The easiest backup that has been done to date on MySQL Community Edition is to have a scheduled task that stops the service, copy the data folder, so the folder where the data files are stored, and then restart the service. So administratively, MySQL is more complex, is less intuitive, is less integrated into the Microsoft infrastructure, but it's free. MySQL SQL Server, more integrated, easier to manage, but it can be expensive. Okay, so, and here, for example, on the guide, you're going to see, here it's an example of data discrepancy, where all the tasks seems to be completed, but in the middle there's one that has an issue, the data is not the same. In this case, as you can see, the execute, cancel, next is not available. The only item that you will have available is the select project and report, pretty much. There is nothing else that you can do. In this case, you have to contact us. And that is the purpose of the tool as well, is that the tool will not let you continue if a tool is not happy on how the system is right now. So now I'm going to go to the second process of data migration, that is to execute the data migration external document migration. So in this one, when you download the zip file and you open it, you are actually going to notice a difference with the guide. If I open it, here I'm going to see that I have four files, where in the guide there is only 3. The reason why is the addition of this file that I noticed is sometimes required for this setup. So what I mean by that is that you follow the guide, but if when you execute the setup XPS, you get an error that says cannot execute the setup because there is one file missing, you just have to execute this one first, and then you execute the setup again, and that will be fixed. For your information, this one is Microsoft Visual C++ redistributable files. So this one is a Microsoft standard product that is needed by the XPS pass-through drivers. And it's just that most systems have that, but some system doesn't have it anymore. I believe that it starts with Microsoft Server 2008 to 12, but they don't ship the older version anymore. So for the installation of the external document exporter, it's exactly the same as the main process, as the importer itself. Same screen, almost. The only difference is that at the end, we ask you to install the XPS pass-through driver. For your information, I didn't notice. I actually didn't put it in the guide as well, but I noticed that as well. This driver cannot be installed on Windows 8 or Windows 10, but is not required on Windows 8 and Windows 10. What I noticed is that on Windows 8 and 10, which is advertised that much as well, is that Windows 8 and 10 ship with a new version of Microsoft XPS driver. It's the version 4 of the driver, but actually allow the functionality that this XPS pass-through driver provide directly out of the box. So Windows 8, Windows 10, you don't need to install the XPS pass-through, but on any other computer you do. The XPS transfer pass-through driver is a standard as well. You will have to accept the installation, and you will be prompted for administrator right to do that. And when the tool is installed, you will have it available in the legacy client chart as the external importer. So let me start it just for you to see. Oh no, sorry, too fast. I have to do something else first, so that you see how you would be started on your screen. So the first things that you do when you start it is that it prompts you to import the configuration and to test the conversion. So to import the configuration, you click on it and you select that file that corresponds to the site, if you have multiple sites, for which you want to process the external document migration. And this .dat file is the one that was created on the export configuration of the main importer tool. Because when you do that, automatically this tool now will know where your database are, and you don't have to do the configuration again. Now the other question is, when do you do the scan importer? You actually do the external document processing at the same time that you do the patch printing. So as soon as the copy data is done, you export the configuration, then you can start the patch printing, then you can go on your other computer and start the external document at the same time. So now, the test conversion, it's just for you to test that all the files can actually be converted correctly. On most computers, on all computers I would say, you're not going to have any issue with the HTML, NTF, and HTML and TXT. NTF shouldn't cause any problem on most computers. PDF, you need Adobe to be open, Adobe Reader to be installed, and the reader is enough. I just need any PDF tool that can print PDF. That's it. Adobe Reader is usually the one used, but any PDF reader that can print PDF file will work with the tool. Then we have the image file, JPEG, GIF, PNG, and BMP. This one shouldn't pose problem, but they will pose problem on Windows 2008 server and 2012 server. Windows 2008 server and 12 server are not shipped anymore with the tool needed to print the image file. You need to install the desktop feature experience, feature that is available in the list of features of SQL Server, of Microsoft Server, to allow the printing of this image. If you try the test conversion and the desktop experience is not installed, you are going to receive a message box from Windows that says you need the desktop experience to print image file. Now, for the doc, XLS, and PPT file that is Microsoft Office, you need Microsoft Office installed. That is only required if your center have used Microsoft Office file in PuckNG. Not all of them have done, but a lot of them have done. A lot of them have used Microsoft Word file or Excel file into PuckNG by importing them. The one who have done it, you will need Microsoft Office installed to convert them. If you don't convert them, what is going to happen if you don't have the Microsoft Office and they are needed? What is going to happen is that these documents are going to end up marked corrupted in the importer tool that you have seen before. In this case, what you can do as well is you can always re-execute the scan importer after you have installed Microsoft Office to fix that. Yeah. Now, when all of that is running, the importer tool, the data migration tool, any of that, you can always execute PuckNG and the viewer at the same time for the viewer as long as the user has been migrated, of course. So now I'm just going to execute the test conversion so that you can see quickly how it works. So it's just going to start to show up green arrow and move forward. You're going to see that I believe my PDF is not configured correctly. Oh, no, it is. PDF is the only one that you can try whatever you want. It will open, and sometimes it will stay there for a while. On TF and TXT usually open a bit as well. But the image usually go through without opening anything. Another item that you may want to be aware for that when running the test is that at time, for example, I did it on this account when I did it. For example, here is a good one of it, is that if the tool asks you for information, like accepting a license for Adobe or this kind of process, you can always do it as is testing and retest again just to make sure that there is no issue. But you should be able to answer questions that occur if some of them occur to make the testing go through and make sure that the files can be converted and retest if you need, just to make sure that all the files go through correctly. When you have done the testing of the file and importing the conversion, you will arrive to the screen. On this screen, you can always go back to the screen so that you can always test the conversion again, just in case. And if not, here you will have the same list of projects that you had on the tool. When you select it, it's going to be completely disabled for a while until the execute button and the progress bar appear. At that time, you can always click execute, and it will run automatically the conversion of documents. So there's another question: is if the viewer options of Microsoft Office can be used instead of a full Microsoft Office, which is an excellent question, because I believe that could be a cheap answer for when you need the Microsoft Office tool and you don't want to install Microsoft Office completely. I would say that yes, there shouldn't be any issue using the viewer version instead of the full version, but it will have to be tested, because for the tool to be able to use the viewer, they have to support the print option, of Microsoft Windows. and I'm not sure if the viewer do support it. I know that Office do, and I know that Adobe Reader do, but the viewer, I'm not sure if they support the print option, so you would have to test. But the viewer could be tested for sure. It is a much cheaper version of it. So when the process is completed, the tool will let you know the number of files that have been completed out of the number that there was in the database. In this case, 3 or 4, because there's one that couldn't be printed as it is corrupted. When the tool has been executed, that's it. All your document, all the document has been converted to the viewer. For Microsoft Office, any version that you support that can open the Office file that are in the PKG system will work. If you have Office 2010 and the file in PKG or 2010, that will work. If you use Office 2013 and the file in the viewer in PKG or 2010, that will work as well. If you use 2013 file in PKG and try to use Office 2010 on the converter, that will not work. And that's all for the external document extract. So as you can see on my screen when I did it, I executed, that was fine. Now just to give you an idea, for Parkdale, I think that the tool, the external document process had to be run for at least a week before I could convert all the scanned documents, and Parkdale is certainly not one of the biggest centers. So it's just to let you know that when I show you the patch printing and the export of external documents, on my screen it is very short. On most of your center, I don't expect them to be completed in less than a week. Some of them will go for the all 6 to 8 weeks to run. And that's it for the external document. So now I'm just going to go through the installation of the viewer itself so that you can see how it looks like a bit, even if it's not the purpose of the presentation today to do the presentation of a viewer. But I just wanted to show you the installation because the purpose of installation, again, is that you just put the LCC file that was produced by the configuration with the viewer installation file. When you run the setup, it will automatically register the database and the configuration. And that's where, if you're multi-site, you really decide how you want to install. If you put one LCC file, only the site with the LCC file will be configured in the viewer. If you put multiple LCC files, then all of them will be configured in the viewer. So on my computer is very slow for installing. I have way too many software on my computer. So it's still processing. Still processing. So the time that it do that, let me go back in the guide. So again, that goes through the standard process. Again, there's no complication on that. Just make sure that all the tools are needed are there to do the conversion. And again, if you have any question, you can always contact us if there's any tools that cause you any issue. So again, on the viewer, I do indicate that you have to put the LCC file in it. And also, I just wanted to show you quickly that in the appendix, it's where you're going to have the different login and password that have been used by PKG standard across the sector, as well as how to create a new login in SQL Server. Would you need one to access your database, either in SQL 2000 or SQL 2005 and any further software. As well, at the appendix B, I do indicate as well where to find the configuration where SQL Server is going to create the database by default, so that you can change it to the location that you want it to be instead of the default that is C program files. So now I'm going to go back to installation. So you're going to see the installation. Now you're going to see the little window that says connection registered successfully. That means that the connection has been registered. And when you execute the viewer, at the top here, you're going to see AOHE, because that's the name that I selected in my project. The username and password here is correct for my testing purpose, but on your center it will not be, and it will not be anything there. It will be empty. It's just that we use it for testing purposes. So that's an example of chart that you open. My computer is really not the fastest of the planet. Here you have the demographics. Here you have a counter. And here I'm going to just open our counter so that you can see that you are going to be able to see them in the viewer. So here actually, as you can see, it's all that's a PDF document or Word document. That was a Word document. This one is a JPEG. This one has not been migrated. And this one is a PDF that is actually this PDF. So just to show you how we are going to manage and the viewer capacity. That so here I open the document. So as you can see, the speed at which you open. But just for you to know, it's a 25-page document, a 9-page document, and it's a webinar agenda. But the viewer do open the document very quickly as compared to PuckNG for most of them. Also, one item that is interesting to notice, no, it's this one. It's this one, I think. No? Yes, this one. So here we have a document that couldn't be migrated. It's the fourth document in error. When you had 3 out of 4, that's the fourth that couldn't be open. So during the data migration, because as you can see, it's going to take time, all scanned documents will not be migrated. At the beginning, you can still open them externally, even if the migration has not completed. That's the 25-page document that was not converted because my Adobe Reader doesn't like when I switch account. I use 2 accounts on my laptop, and when I switch account, it's not configured correctly anymore. It doesn't like it, so it didn't print it. But you can always open the document externally if it has not been migrated yet. Okay, so that is the extent of the presentation and training. Now, at the end of the presentation, again, you're going to receive an email with the links. One of them is going to be the work plan. The work plan is that tool here. It's an Excel file that, like the Nightingale migration, will go through each step that has been and that has to be completed, so that you can follow up what you did, what needs to be done, and how it works. We, on the timeline, we expect you to start the data migration process as soon as possible, especially for the large site, so that if you have any issue, we can resolve them as quickly as possible. We also going to ask you by the end of October to have feedback on the viewer tool itself. So we are going to deploy it around mid-October. By the end of October, we are looking for first feedback, general impression, how you like it, so that by November, we can make adjustment to the interface if we need to. And after that, we expect by the mid-December for everybody to have gone through validation and be able to switch to the new system. And again, don't hesitate to contact us if you have any question, concern, or issues at ims@eohg.org. We are there. We are here to help you. And that's it. So now,
there was a question. For the documents that could not be migrated, are we able to search for them to view them externally?
On the viewer itself, right now, no, there's no distinction on the ones that have been migrated to the ones that have not been migrated, but it's something that we are looking into because it would be a good indicator for validation in any way to know which one have migrated and which one are not. If this information is there, then most likely we will allow, the viewer will always allow you to sort, which will make it easy to find the documents that are migrated or not in the chart.
But when you open a document and it has not been migrated, it will tell you that it's not been migrated. So that information will be there on opening the document, but we will look into making it available
on the list itself.
On the list itself, yeah.
As an indicator. You can unmute everybody and see.
So we're going to go ahead and just unmute everyone.
Just in case there's anybody who need any other questions, or any other concern.
And everything's good. Unmuted everyone, and if you guys have any questions, you can.
Oh, there's another question from Ahmad as well on when the import tool, on when you start the external document. So again, it's indicated in the guide, but it's when the copy data has been completed. So before, it's at the same time as the patch printing. So patch printing and external document should be starting around the same time.
Open the guide. The guide.
More question, I think. Okay, so it's after this step, when all of them are in and you can export the configuration, then that's where you will be going, after this tool, you will be going to the patch printing. At the same time, you can start the scan document on the other side. And if you try to start the import tool too soon, it will let you know anyway. It will not let you do it. Any other questions? Okay, so thank you everybody for attending. And again, if you had any questions, ims@eohg.org. And we hope to hear from you soon on your success. Have yourself a good day and have yourself a very good week.